Good morning and welcome to Equity Chat. I think we call this Equity Chat 2.0.
I
And
love
I
it.
am so excited to have with me this morning Dr. Latanya LT, Rease Miles. And we are just so excited to have you. I'm personally excited to be able to talk to you this morning. We were just doing a little Bay Area catch up, which was fun.
Yes.
And so, if it's okay, I'll call you LT if that's
Of
okay.
course. Everyone but my mom calls me LT, so
Well,
go right ahead.
of
Of
course, you
course.
get all the names with
I
mom.
get the whole government name.
And siblings. You get it all, right? So good morning, and tell us a little about you.
Sure. Good to see you, Dr. Pam. And greetings from San Mateo, actually,
Mm,
specifically. I wear a number of hats, but I'll lead with I'm a proud first generation college graduate. I was a transfer student as well. And have had the opportunity to actually leave an imprint on the first generation college movement. I'm a former first year experience director at UCLA, created first gen programs at there and at Loyola Marymount University. I'm currently, though, higher ed adjacent is what we'll say, working for a nonprofit, but I've also had experience in the for-profit and ed tech space. So I've seen quite a bit, my friend, and a former Trio
mm.
director. Got to shout out
Oh
Trio as
yeah,
well.
trio.
Trio, yeah. And I currently teach at Santa Clara University.
Oh wow, such a
Beautiful,
great campus. Having grown up
beautiful
in San
campus.
Jose, we spent a little
Oh,
time at Santa Clara. Yeah, that's a great space. Well, we have this favorite question that we ask everybody. So, as you engage in equity focused work,
mhm.
what's your walk up song or anthem?
You're right. That is a great question. I am going to represent the Bay Area with this answer, though. I think right now, especially, well, doing equity work, especially at this time, um, many of us may struggle to find joy. But I'm
Mm,
going to shout out the song Good by Pilo, Bay Area. He said they want to see me doing bad, but I'm good, right? And I think we have
mm,
to lean into that while we're
yeah.
fighting, while we're disrupting, but also it's okay to be doing good at the same time, you know? So I want to embrace it all.
I'm so glad you said that. We often have conversations right now about the relevance of the movie Inside Out
Mm-hmm.
and like trying to emulate joy.
That's right.
And I have adopted every morning I get up and say, I'm going to find my joy. I'm going to
That's
find
right.
my joy.
That's right.
Uh, yeah, which is different than, um, yeah, it's yeah. I appreciate so much looking for the positive, even though there's times where
It's
um,
hard.
it's hard
Yeah.
and it's hard, and yet don't we all do hard things all the time?
There you go.
All the time, all the
All
time.
the time. Yeah.
Higher ed, in higher ed, we're used to, and especially in the community college game, we're used to being underestimated, right?
Hmm.
And so I think we need to break out of that space, but
Yeah, because we're gonna
nonetheless,
win. We're gonna win. So
yeah,
Mhm.
for sure. All right. So in terms of your own development, your own how you came into this work, was there a defining moment or
Mm.
experience that catalyzed your journey to engage in the work in the way that you do?
For sure. So here's the irony. For as much as I'm a first gen champion and embrace my identity, I did not know I was first generation college myself for a long, I had completed my whole doctorate before I knew. So I knew I was the first in my family. That was pretty evident. I was the first in my family to go to college. But when I was in school, people weren't exactly using that language. There weren't the t-shirts and the buttons. And it wasn't until I was working at UCLA, mind you, overseeing a trio program, that one of my graduate students said to me, LT, you know you're first gen, right? I was like, what? I had no idea. And Pam, it was like that moment in the movie where you go back and you think of everything that came before and it all kind of made sense. So shout out to that graduate student, Dr. Tracy
Mm,
Buenavista. amazing Asian American scholar at Cal State Northridge, for educating me. And I think it's a great example of how education flows. You know, I was her supervisor, but she was
Mm,
informing me. She's another woman of color, and so that sort of cross-cultural community as well. But she also gave me my life's purpose, and because I once I learned that once I realized that identity applied to me, I wanted to make sure that other people were aware of that identity from a strengths-based perspective, though. Not all the things that we lack, but all the things that we bring to colleges and universities.
yeah, the potency of that statement is being humble and vulnerable enough to learn from everyone around us, regardless of their rank in the room, right?
Mhm.
I've learned so much from students
That's
over the
right.
years, that we do things on behalf of others instead of with them. And
Right,
I
right.
think what you just described is that those beautiful moments where we're like, oh gosh, I have so much to learn from whomever's around me, and I should really open my eyes to all of it,
That's
right?
right. That's right. She changed my life,
Yeah.
and
Oh,
so I'm grateful to her.
so many times. I was thinking about this the other day. Dr. Curry and Dr. Gilkerson and I, our Equity Avengers group, our relationship really catalyzed around the basic needs work that we started in
Mm,
2018. Not that basic needs started in 2018, but just community college movement, getting CEOs involved, trustees involved, like trying to make it a movement, not a moment kind of thing.
ooh, yes.
And then I realized, oh my gosh, when I was at San Jose State, I lost all support in my last couple of years through some family stuff that occurred. And literally on the weekends, I would like probably not have food, right? And
Mm-hmm.
I thought it never occurred to me that that was part of my experience or that I
Right.
had learned something from that. I had just glossed over that, like, oh, I'm okay
Mm,
now. But those
mm-hmm.
really, and I was fine. I could have gone place. I mean, I was in no danger of, really, having so much hunger that it would have affected me physically. But that feeling of not knowing where your next meal comes from is
That's
visceral.
right. That's right.
So
So,
those things implant in us, I think, along the way, and then we're ready when we're ready. So,
and it's important to have vocabulary to describe our experiences, to validate them, right? So whether it's I too was food insecure or first generation college or transfer, like, oh, that's my experience, and others
yeah,
have it too.
yeah, for sure. So, if this is such a hard question, but I'll ask it anyway because I'm sure
Okay.
you're up for it. If you could achieve one breakthrough in racial equity that would have the most significant impact on student success, what would it be?
Yeah, well, I don't know about most, but let me tell you what I'm really passionate about that I don't think people talk enough about. When I had attended 9 different schools by 10th grade, and then went on to 3 different institutions. So I said I was a transfer, but I went to 3 different colleges and universities. And I did a lot of that on public transportation. So
Mm,
all that to say, this idea of student mobility, I don't think we talk enough about.
yeah,
And it impacts students of color, well, uh, obviously students of low income and limited financial means, but definitely students of color and Black students in particular. And so I'm beating a drum. I want to be the Pied Piper of increasing awareness of this phenomenon that you and I both know comes about due to financial stress, due to all kinds of insecurity, job insecurity. Students often are not in control of these situations. I wasn't. I had to go
mhm,
wherever my mom went. You know what I
right,
mean? And when I think, I have to wonder, how did I do that? And somehow make my way to college still.
yeah,
I didn't find stability until graduate school. Most of us don't make it to graduate school. So all that to say, I'm hope in this era of my work right now, I'm really focused on amplifying that phenomenon. Students are being overlooked. We need to increase scholar and practitioner awareness so that we have some good data, qualitative
Yeah.
and quantitative data, and look at how we can better identify and support those students.
Wow. I could not agree with you more on that. I think we underestimate that. And my observation has been managing the asset of an automobile is not always
Oof.
in the best interest of people who can't afford to
Mm,
fix them, or don't know how to
mm.
take care of them. And this is not demeaning any particular group of students, but I've seen students get in such trouble over tickets and flat tires, and it just and if we could have some sort of ubiquitous support as a student comes in for
Yeah,
how they're getting around and how they're getting to class
that's
and
right.
all those kinds of things, I think, if you can handle it, great. Um, but people think, well, they should just get an old, beater and, drive to school. And it's like,
It's
it's not how that
stressful.
works.
It's
It's
not
not
how
how
it
that works.
works.
It's not a bootstrap thing here. It's like we gotta tame that lion because it's just not. And I think that's when that idea of how much privilege seeps into the solutions we try to make as leaders.
Mm-hmm.
We have to check ourselves regularly on the assets that we have available to us when we're trying to solve problems for others who don't have those same assets and won't for a bit. I
Absolutely.
think we have to
Yeah.
really, think about that a little bit. But yeah, oh, that's a good one. Okay.
I had to get
Yeah.
up. I was in DC. I had to get up at 5 o'clock in the morning,
Yeah.
and I actually went to school in Virginia. I had to be at school at 7:20 in the morning. At school. So I had to all by
Wow.
myself. I got myself to school, you know. So,
Yep.
yep.
I lived in a dorm for one semester and I had a 7:30 class I still couldn't make. So
Right.
I'm that was probably for other reasons than proximity, but yeah, you know how it is when you're young. But
That's
anyway,
right. That's
yeah.
right.
So so to do this work, we have to learn, right? And partner with others. How do you keep in that loop of developing yourself from, a knowledge base and who's informing your practice?
Yeah, it's so funny that you mentioned students because I want to shout out my graduate students at Santa Clara. I teach in the Department of Education and Counseling Psychology. I have the great privilege of educating educators, and they are phenomenal and fantastic. I get to teach on social impact and design thinking, but it comes from them, you know. I ask them what they want to learn, what they want to focus on, what kind of guests they want to hear from. I've just really started to lean into students co-designing their final projects. And look, I got this book right here. Thanks to a student. This is Dismantling Deficit Thinking in Academic Libraries. And that's
Ooh,
what a student referred me to this book. So shout out
nice.
to Marina for that. So a lot of my good thinking right now and a lot of the learning I'm doing is coming from my own students. It's just been such a great collaborative environment.
Yeah, that's a great place to derive a little joy, right? I mean, I just
Yes.
being in the classroom, I too teach in an ed program. And so it's just so joyful. I feel like every time I teach the capstone course at San Diego State in the doctoral program. And
Mm-hmm.
I think it's like every time that group walks out the door, I feel like I have new best friends in the fight, right?
Yeah,
Like if we're
yes.
sending them out armed to do good, joyful trouble work, but
That's
just
right.
creating that. But I think that's so true, and how lovely to get that recommendation
Absolutely.
from
Because
your
you can't read it all. You can't do it all. It's hard to keep
no,
up with everything. This wasn't even
yeah.
on my radar, and my student told me about it, and I ended up incorporating it into a class.
And the books that we're often are in our zone are, not always the ones we need to be reading. I mean, we need to
Exactly.
read about history and literature. And, I just think I often thought if I ever went back and got another degree, which, please, I should not do that. It would probably be like in literature or, something like that, where all I would have to do is read books.
Okay, come on my side. That is funny enough. That's what my PhD is in. So
Oh,
come on over to my side.
okay. I will. I will. Well, I'm also trying to write. So, that's the other thing I gotta.
That's the balance.
Yeah, oh, it is. I've taken a million workshops and still have like one chapter. So I'll get there. I'll get
You'll
there
get
eventually. When the time is right, the words will flow. I'm convinced.
just get out there every day, man.
Yeah, that's what I hear. And someone told me you just go to MSU every day, make stuff up. I'll say stuff, right? Just
That's
go,
it. That's
just
it.
go. Someone goes, I use a yellow legal pad. And I'm like, I've been using a keyboard to download my brain for a very long
Yeah,
time. So I'm
yeah,
okay
yeah,
with that. But
yeah,
anywho, yeah. So we all have this vision, or most of us have a vision of the future we want to live in.
yeah,
And what's your freedom dream for higher ed, and what gives you hope for its future?
yeah. Okay, first of all, what a hard question to ask someone. Okay, but I appreciate it. I really appreciate it. I think for me, my freedom dream is that colleges and universities see first generation students as the blueprint and not the exception, right? And what I mean by that is as institutions are designing policies and practices and curricula, that those students are the students they have in mind, as opposed to some proto student that honestly really doesn't even rarely exists anymore when all these policies and institutions were created, and then hope that a first gen student sort of figures it out, right?
Yeah.
Um, the reality is that like the water itself is problematic, so we have to like clean it all out. And so when we think about first generation students, we need to think not about what they don't have, which is very deficit thinking, but all that they bring. And one of the things I like to say is how much beauty and creativity comes in not knowing something or seeing something for the first time, right? So when you do that, you approach it with fresh eyes. Like any engineer will tell you that. Your dad would tell you that.
Mm-hmm.
And we need to see these students who are, for them, what we're saying about first generation students, that they don't come from a college going background, right? But because of that, they have gifts and insights that the universities and educational systems need to centralize and not marginalize. So that's my vision, the big vision. Let's
Wow.
get there.
Yeah, and I think the term non-traditional student should be banned,
Hmm.
because there's no such thing as a traditional or a non-traditional student at this point. They are simply
That's
the
right.
group of people that decided they wanted access to higher education. They showed up at our doors for us to be able to provide that.
That's
And
right.
you said something earlier about
Mm,
co-designing, right?
right.
We don't even think about co-designing, in my humble opinion, enough
That's right.
with first gen students.
Hmm.
Um, because I think we think that somehow that the capacity to do that isn't there because they don't have that experience. I think just all evidence to the contrary, really. Like
All evidence to the
it
contrary.
really, that for the most part, students know the end around. They know how to get stuff done in their own lives, and they could help us navigate that better.
Absolutely. There was a student I had back at Loyola Marymount who can't remember. This was years, over a decade ago. I remember him coming into my office and he had seen Greek folks in Greek life with their letters. And he came into my office. He was like, LT, I want a whole outfit. I want a first gen outfit. This is way before t-shirts were a thing. And I was like, okay, Chris, let's get you a first gen outfit. And so he was making the connections the best he could. You know
Yeah,
what I
yeah,
mean?
yeah.
And it started a tradition at Loyola Marymount that exists to this day of every year creating this first generation shirt to show community. And they
Mm,
have one of the oldest first generation week programs. Theirs is over 10 years old at this point, all because this young man was like, "Hey, I'm trying to find my people.
yeah.
How can I identify who else is
Right.
first gen?" That
Yeah.
makes
Where's my
sense.
folks?
Who are
Where's
my
my
folks?
folks? Yeah, it's my folks. Absolutely. Well, I maybe it's because Flash is behind you that this has gone by in a flash, but
Oh,
we try to keep these shorter just because we give people an opportunity to listen in the time that they have, right? So I just want to thank you for spending time this morning and coming into this Equity Avenger Equity Chat. And I certainly hope our paths cross somewhere along the way because it would be a lot of fun to support your work and watch you grow.
Thank you so much and have a great time in Spain.
Thank you so much.
All right, take care.
All right, take care.